Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. Apologies, we are a few minutes late. Tiger was caught up in some pretty bad London traffic, so apologies for that, but we're all here now. So today we have Tiger Tyagarajan, who is CEO and president at Genpact. I have had the great pleasure of speaking with him before and delighted to have him back. So just briefly, Genpact, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a global professional services firm. It was launched in 1997, I think, as a unit of GE. But now there are 115,000 people or so globally, and may be best known for their skills in digital data and operational excellence, and advise clients primarily on digital transformation. Revenues of about 4.37 billion in 2022. So lots of good work going on out there. Thank you again so much, Tiger, for joining us today.
Karen, great to be on the call. I'm sorry, I apologize for London traffic.
Well, that's a lot to take on, but thank you. I appreciate that you made your way through it. You're here. So we'll just dive right in. You said in a recent interview that Genpact is investing about $600 million over the next 3 years, which is a phenomenal sum, particularly for a company your size. And this would be an investment in AI. Can you tell us about some of the AI advancements you plan to bring to your customers with this investment?
Yeah, so Karen, thank you again for having me on. The way I would think about the 600 million is it's over 3 years, and then divide it up into three buckets. The first bucket is what we call R&D in our business, where we have people who understand the problem that our clients are tackling. So, for example, insurance claims, or underwriting in a small business lending world, or a retailer places an order with a consumer goods company and he has to deliver that order on time in full. And I can go on and on. So teams that actually spend time understanding the process, understanding the data and the domain, and then bring in the right technologies to actually undertake the journey of using AI populated with all the data that we have to then create value of amazing insights that they can build based on that prior history of data. So that's one portion of the investment that we call that R&D. It's typically about 2% of the revenue of the company. So think about it as about $90 million a year. And about at least half of that is now being directed towards these types of AI solutions. Is you can imagine that given the cash flow profile of our business, which is fantastic, we allocate a pretty good portion of that capital to acquisitions. And historically, the acquisitions we've done have been focused on data, analytics, AI. In fact, I actually was talking to one of our board members just today. 2017 March is when we announced our big AI acquisition of Rage Frameworks. And basically, press announcement, if you read it, if I delete Rage Frameworks, it applies today. I guess we were a little bit ahead.
That's great.
So we continue to invest in, through our capital allocation on acquisition. And then the third bucket is often underrepresented in investments is reskilling of our employee base. You talked about 115,000 people. We have a systematic program of reskilling them. Obviously, different people get reskilled to different levels. Right. And we drive, it's actually a DNA that we have going back to the days of GE. We did that with Lean and Six Sigma and then digital and cloud. And now we're doing it with AI. I mean, just one number would be fascinating because we reported to the board. 63,000 people have enrolled on our Gen AI and AI learning platform on Genome. It's a learning platform. And within that, there's a AI and Gen AI learning. 63,000 people. And about 20% of them have completed their certification of level 1, level 2. Now, I don't expect all 100,000 people to be level 7 certified. I don't expect that. But different people will get to different levels of certification. The most sophisticated ones will get to level 7 certification. That might take 2 years. We partnered with Udemy to actually do that. We are delighted. And I'll end by saying, I guess it'll be fair to say, Karen, in the world of today, culture trumps everything. Yes. People think that technology and AI and all is great, but the reality is it's actually culture even more than before.
Yes. And I think we spent a fair amount of our last conversation talking about the culture there and how well it has served you and your customers. Well, I'm imagining your employees, and you can see that from the response, are thrilled to have access to substantial training on what's happening in the world of AI today. So I read that you've also partnered with Microsoft. Maybe this plays in that same arena to allow your employees access to their Azure OpenAI service. Can you talk a bit about that partnership and what it means for Genpact and your customers?
Yeah, no, it's a great partnership. I'll start with Microsoft OpenAI, the question that you asked. So a lot of our internal, Office 365, Outlook, Office products, etc., is all Microsoft, and has been that way for ever since we were born with GE in 1996. So it was natural for us to actually sit down with Microsoft and become part of their program, where we have access to the latest and greatest in their technology as it keeps evolving. One of our board members, who's the professor of AI, machine learning, and business economics at the University of Toronto Business School, he basically said, if you don't figure out what's happening every Friday, you're going to miss the bus, because this is changing at that pace. So, and I can vouch for that. I've been shocked at the pace of change. So our partnership with Microsoft OpenAI is one of the 600 odd that they're partnering with, where we are allowing access to their technology for us to build solutions, both to serve our clients as well as to really drive value within the organization for some of the stuff that we do. For example, we train people. I talked about training. We train people on process, and we hire a person and then we train the person on accounts payable or receivable or closing the books. Sometimes that training is a 3-week training. Sometimes that training for very complex stuff can actually be a 5-month training. One of the amazing things that something like GenAI does is to digest 500,000 pages of standard operating procedures, kind of make it available for the associate to constantly ask questions, and you think about it as a co-pilot sitting with you. I think the best way that I would describe it, and I talk a lot about this, saying Excel spreadsheets have become ubiquitous. I mean, no one asks a question, do you use Excel? Of course we all use Excel.
Right, of course you do. Yeah.
But it's like the right hand and the left hand. So OpenAI, but we also partner with Google Cloud, and we also partner with Amazon Bedrock. In fact, one of the most recent solutions we launched into the market, fully productionized with 2 clients, is anti-money laundering and transaction monitoring, built on the Bedrock Amazon Web Services platform with our Risk Canvas platform. We understand anti-money laundering, we understand KYC. So, which is the other thing about GenAI. I think it's all about, do you really understand the process? Do you understand the domain? Do you understand the data? And if you do, then you can add value. If you don't, you're in dangerous terrain. In fact, it's better not to do. It's better actually don't do anything.
Yeah, because you end up with information that you can't evaluate in any way if you don't understand the domain that you're in. So I'm also curious, because you have a really wide view of things, given your position in your organization. What are the main challenges and opportunities that you see for AI and Gen AI? Are those challenges and opportunities presenting to organizations? And I know those are broad, but you could focus in a little bit on talent acquisition and management in particular.
So Karen, I'm going to start where probably a lot of people may not start. I'll start with culture, and therefore, the ability to drive change and the ability to absorb change. So organizations that have incredible ability to absorb continuous change and actually like it, they are passionate about it. They're not scared. Obviously, it's not because of them alone. It's the company that actually helps them. So the importance of driving change, I don't think has been more important than ever before. And therefore, it's an environment that you have to create where people can ask questions, they can experiment. I think the one thing that everyone has to be prepared for is the world of experimentation. You got to experiment. Obviously, it must be contained experiment, which is why we have many, many pilots going on. And then the production that I talked about with anti-money laundering KYC had gone through, I don't know how many times of how many checks, because the last thing you want is one of those solutions not working. So people need to be very comfortable experimenting. By definition, experiments work and they don't work. If they don't work, they need to be able to raise their hand and say, Tiger, this is not working. So can we move on to the next stuff? It's okay to continuously experiment. The good news is this is not a mega ERP project. you can actually do in bite-sized. And as long as you're focused on key outcomes, which takes me to one of the other challenges that I think companies have is Gen AI and AI clearly looks like a hammer searching for a set of nails. A problem that we all have to avoid. Good news is I think are getting there. And ruthless prioritization is incredibly important. And then I would say, how do you prioritize? One thing that I would argue, and we've seen this again and again, is the dangerous path for prioritization and solutions to take is Gen AI and AI is about labor replacement, is about cost and efficiency. And I think it's dangerous because I think people are going to not get enough value. They're going to be disappointed. People are going to then blame the technology. The reality is, of course, you'll get cost benefit, you'll get labor benefit. But the big benefit is, can you actually expand the market? Can you actually do new things that you never thought you could do? Can you actually give an insurance claim, someone who files an insurance claim after a really bad accident? Can you actually go back and tell the claimant in 3 hours that we've approved your claim for X dollars and here's the check in the mail, or here's the, we're wiring it to you. Sometimes that takes a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Imagine the customer delight. And so the more people think about outcomes like that, user experience, customer experience, growth, cycle time, and reduce rework and reduce defects. If you're reporting you really don't want any defects. So, I think AI plays a big role in reducing the number of defects that typically happen. So I think I can, but those are competitive advantages that our clients can build if they go down the path of leveraging AI for those types of things.
Yeah, completely agree. I think there's also the big benefit, which you alluded to, for employee engagement as people are encouraged to upskill and given opportunities to do that, so that we're doing less work that doesn't need to be done by a human brain. And we're allowed to use our brains in ways that are more beneficial, more fruitful for ourselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ken.
Right. So I know another issue that's come up for some of my clients, and I know it's even bigger than that, is this: everybody wants to embrace AI, right? It's like the word of the year, and maybe Gen AI, the subset of that. But data privacy and security is a huge concern. I know some of my software clients are, like, they're sorting it out, but you can't just let this thing loose in the organization. So how are you approaching data security and privacy?
So I would say, one of the phrases we've come up with just to make it ingrained in our people is the phrase our Gen AI. It's not Gen AI, it's our Gen AI. We work building our Gen AI solutions, and R stands for responsible. So responsible Gen AI path going forward. There aren't hard-coded regulations yet across the world, but it's going to come. Self-regulation is actually the best path for industries to take. And that falls into a variety of buckets. Firstly, InfoSec and cyber. How exposed is your really private information of you and your customers and suppliers? If you use Gen AI, are you going to expose that to the outside world? And you may not have any right to do that, unless you do have the right to do that. You may not, in which case you've got to be really. The second one, which I think is underappreciated, but I think more and more clients are beginning to appreciate it, is if you have bad data, and in the world of no AI, then humans kind of expect bad data and therefore look at it, and then using their experience and expertise built over years, they kind of sort it out and say, this is bad data, I'm going to fix the data, and then I'll produce the answer. And if they don't know the answer, they'll call their boss, they'll call their colleague, right? They'll call their team. In the world of AI and the machine builds patterns based on the data you feed it. If you feed data, then it's going to produce an irresponsible answer. And you can't blame the machine for hallucinating. Yeah, I know that, yes, you can, but the reality is if you have bad data answers, if you ask...
You can, but you shouldn't, Tiger. Okay. Yeah.
So the combination of InfoSec, cyber, the fact that you have to make sure your data is clean, then The other thing that, again, I think people are beginning to understand is that an AI model that is used today with data that you have just cleaned up and fed into the AI machine is going to produce some great results. However, the world changes, the business changes. You have a new policy, you have lots of new stuff that happens these days more often than longer term. So how do you keep your AI up to, how do you refresh your engine? How do you, create a life cycle of managing AI? That's a whole new genre. So I think responsible AI is still early days. Good news is I think most of our clients understand the problem. The bad outcome is when people say, therefore we'll do nothing. No, that's not a good outcome.
Yeah, things are happening. You need to figure out how to be part of it, as you say, in a responsible way. So, Tiger, I know we just have a few minutes left because we both have a hard stop at the end of the hour or the middle of the hour. So, as we look ahead, what do you think is going to be the most maybe transformative development from AI and Gen AI in the next maybe 5 to 10 years? And if you could, I know the future of work is something you've spoken about and are pretty passionate about. Maybe you could talk about trends in that area as well from these software.
Yeah, I think, Karen, you actually took the words out of my mouth. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, work will be done differently. Work will be a combination of a core technology architecture, which it is today. It could be a workflow. It could be, typically these days, hopefully more and more workflow on the cloud. It's low code, no code, which actually makes it easy to change the workflow based on new policies and new competitive products you're building. And then it talks to ERPs that customers have. The good news is these days, you can actually make the cloud talk to multiple ERPs without necessarily having to consolidate all of them on day one. So you actually have a faster return. So that's the good news. And then you have to clean the data. And then you got to build solutions that actually solve specific problems. We call that tiny LLM. So I want my AI, that is a foundational model from Microsoft or from Google or from Amazon, that is being trained on public information. I want to train it on my specific for auto insurance for my client. That is very specific. That is not public information. That's private information. And I think that kind of an example. And then I want to send it off to the customer. And then if the customer has a query, the co-pilot actually looks at the query and says, hey, this is the answer, and gives it to me as the person who's talking to the customer. So I can have an amazing conversation with the customer. Is my job gone? I don't think so. Because I don't know if you want to lose the touch with the customer. For very simple things, of course you can, but for most other things you won't. So I actually raise my game, and I get much cleverer at talking to the customer about new events in their life, new products they want to buy, add value to them, etc. So the whole nature of work is going to change. That's why I think about it as Excel spreadsheet. When you hire a finance person today, you don't test the person for, can you add, subtract, multiply, and divide? You assume that you're going to be able to use Excel. I'm not even going to ask you the question. There's going to come a time when you don't test the person. Are you comfortable using these kind of AI solutions? And then the real power is, how capable am I of using it? How much do I learn? How much do I experiment? And how do I drive end-to-end value for the customer?
Yeah, terrific. Well, I think that's a beautiful note to end on, end-to-end value for the customer. Thank you again, Tiger, for joining us. Good to see you, and look forward to all of this unfolding in, as you say, a responsible way over the next few years, and whatever it is that Genpact is able to do with this, both internally and externally. I know you are as committed to having the right culture internally as you are to supporting your customers with that. So thank you again.
I apologize to you and your audience for being a little late. I'll end by saying, you asked me a bunch of questions and I gave answers as though I know the answers. I think one of the things we all need to understand is we don't know. As the CEO of the company, I have to have an intense learning muscle. If I say my people are going to learn, but I'm not going to learn, then I think the company is not going to be agile enough. So I'll end on that note saying, I task myself to learn every day.
Terrific. Thank you, and stay curious, Tiger. Good to see you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.